This is Jean Moore with More Than Sports. I am here with a former Washington Husky and former coach of a few different colleges, but ultimately head coach at Portland State and a current analyst for the Pac-12 Network. So Nigel Burton, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. By the way, there's no such thing as a former Husky. You just are or you're not. That's how it works. But I appreciate it. Thank you for having me tonight.
Absolutely. So we're going to go back just a little bit, just a little. You grew up in Sacramento, ultimately went to the University of the Pacific.
Yep.
And they eliminated the football program. Was that your freshman year, the end of your freshman year? Or?
Excuse me. Yeah, right after my freshman season.
Okay.
We had a team banquet and everybody was the president was there talking about the school's investment in football, and we're really excited because our team was really young and we had a lot of talent, especially in our class. We had guys who transferred to UCLA, Cal, Washington State, Arizona State, New Mexico, and everybody played. Everybody, and a few guys ended up being stars and playing in the NFL. I think we had in our one class, we had 4 guys go to the NFL. From the little University of the Pacific. Yeah, it was crazy. So I actually coached one of them at the Denver Broncos, which was interesting. Coached my buddy Donnie Spragan. But yeah, no, that's how it went down. So I was lucky enough to have played and had a chance to transfer to the University of Washington.
So talk to me about how that all happened. How did you end up at the University of Washington? You know, when I don't know the process really of when a program eliminates their football. How does that work?
It was crazy. It was crazy because I actually I didn't even find out from a coach. This is before cell phones and all that. So cell phones I guess were around, but no, I didn't have one. I couldn't afford one. So I went to a friend's house from high school, and she answered the door. I was like, "Hey, what's up with your program? There's something on TV." And my coach was like in his late 60s, so I thought he was retiring. And then they're like, "Nah, the whole program just dropped." And I was like, "What?" So I jumped in the car, raced home. My dad was waiting for me. I was pissed, and he's like, "Look, this might actually be the best thing ever happened to you." The next couple of days were crazy because we were just trying to get film so that we could show coaches like, hey, this is what I did. And it just happened that year we played against Tommy Frazier's Nebraska team that blew out Florida. We played Oregon, we played Oregon State, we played Arizona. So we played 4 Pac-12 schools, maybe 5 that season, or Pac-12, Power 5 schools. And I played really well in most of those games. And so, I'm not the biggest guy on the planet. So a lot of the coaches who had questions about whether I could do it at that level, now had film of me going against Amon Green and Ricky Whittle and guys who were just, stars. And I held my own. I did well as a true freshman. So I put together a little film. What was crazy was coaches were going down there from Power 5 schools or from everywhere and literally just taking the tapes. So there were games that nobody could get a hold, couldn't get because some coaches literally just snagged it. But I got some interest from University of Nevada, a couple other schools, and Washington just happened to have had Lawyer Malloy was leaving early. They had been hit by sanctions, so that class was thin. And I actually took a trip to Stanford, and they did not offer me, and I was upset. I got home, I got a phone call from Ron Miles, who's now coaching with the LA Chargers. It was like, "Hey, we're offering you a full ride." And I'm like, "All right, man, don't play with me." And he's like, "No, for real." Actually, I think Scott Linehan actually called me first, who was the head coach in the NFL for a while. And I'm like, "Well, let's go. Let's do it." And by the way, when do we play Stanford? Because those dudes, Tyrone Willingham was the coach. And so, it was a wild process, though. Even after I committed, my roommate from college was being recruited by Washington State, and a couple of guys from Wazoo. And so the guy who had recruited me out of high school to Washington State, but they didn't offer me, showed up at our apartment. And he's like, "Nigel?" And I'm like, "Hey, what's up, coach?" He's like, "Oh, man, we can make this a package deal." I'm like, "Nah, man, I'm going to Washington." So good luck. So yeah, that's. I mean, people didn't even know where everybody was. It was the Wild West doesn't even begin to describe what that was, but it worked out, and I was very blessed.
And you played safety, is that correct, in college?
Yeah, I did. They recruited me to play corner until they figured out I had never actually done it. They thought I was just like, oh, he's little, he can play corner. And my senior year, I walked into the locker room. We were playing UCLA, Cade McNown, a bunch of guys that they had, and they're like, "Hey, you're in the wrong room." And I'm like, okay. And they're like, no, you're with Miles. You're playing corner this week. I was like, what? I go, hey, just so you guys know, I've never played corner a day in my life. Like, I've played in practice, I've screwed around, but like I've never played in a game. And they looked like, wait, are you for real? I'm like, yeah, like never. Did you ever see me play? I've never played corner. I've only played safety in a game and any level. And so I survived, but barely.
So what was it like playing for, Pac at that time, Pac-10, school like Washington? What was that experience like, coming from the University of the Pacific and then going to, a pretty big college with a rich football history?
Yeah, we were power. I mean, we beat up on a lot of people. It was eye opening, but it was cool because when I went to Pacific, like I said, our class was really talented. Walked in the door, and we were like, "Look, all you old dudes who are used to losing, get the hell out the way." And it did not go over very well with the older guys who saw our talent, but they were a little pissed. And I can't even say I was the best guy in my class. I mean, there were guys who played in the league who were like really good players. I got to Washington, and it was just a totally different attitude. There was an expectation of winning, not just winning, dominating people. There was an expectation of kind of playing the way that I had liked to play. I had kind of built a program, or was part of building a program in high school. I was part of building a program my first year of college. And then I walked into a situation where it was like, look, if you give up points, we'll kill you. Like if you miss a tackle, you're going to have problems. And not with the coaches, like with the other players. They just had a standard that was really high. And so I appreciated that. And I think that's why I kind of fit in after a while.
Now, who was your biggest rival?
See, back then it was still Wazoo. Wazoo was better than Oregon, though we lost to Oregon, which was kind of crazy. That was kind of the beginning of, like, I remember the first time a kid took a trip to Washington and was like normally we would get guys on visits and, I'd help host. Like, oh, were you thinking about going? Like, oh, USC, UCLA, Notre Dame. And I remember the first time a kid was like, yeah, I think I'm gonna go to Oregon. And we were like, what? Like, why the hell would you do that? Like, we killed him. Like, what? And but yeah, so back then it was kind of Wazoo, and Wazoo was really good. They went to the Rose Bowl our junior year. We had brothers who were split, cousins who were split, the Aliagas, the Misons, the Hollemans. My best friend was Love Jefferson, played at Wazoo from Pacific. So it was personal. It was like a personal game. And we would hang out with those guys in the off season. It was really a trip. So it wasn't like a bloodbath. It was just like, look, like this is like our family, and you got to beat the hell out of your brother. Like you can't let your little brother feel like he's better than you. So that's kind of how it was.
So, by the way, Terry Holloman says hi.
Oh, well, man, T-Bone's my guy. So that's what we used to call him in college.
That's what he said about you, too. Yeah. So
they called me T-Bone? There's no way he said they called me T-Bone.
No. He said that you were a good dude. Oh. I asked him if he had any stories that I could share, and he said not on air. So
okay. Well, that was good, because if he came after me, I got way better stories on it. I was a good kid back then. So I got way more stories on
yeah, he didn't share any. So you guys are both good.
That was a good decision on Terry's part. No doubt.
So you started coaching soon after you graduated from college. Was that always kind of your vision, or did you want to go to the NFL? Like what were your plans? What did you think that you would do after you graduated college?
It was a trip. It was like my dream was just to play big time college football. I loved college football growing up. I watched the NFL, but it wasn't really my thing. And so I just love the pageantry of college. I love the band and the fans and people painting their face, just all of that. And so when I did that, I was like, I'm good, you know. And no, I had no intention of coaching. Matter of fact, Dick Baird was one of the guys that helped recruit me. It was a mentor of mine and one of the best people I've ever met. And he kept like telling me, like, man, you know, college football needs black head coaches, or we need black coaches. Like, you should do this. I was like, man, y'all crazy. I see you sleeping in the office and stuff. I'm not doing this. No, I went and I was an accountant at Deloitte and Touche, public accounting firm. We were one of the big 8 or big 6 back then. And so that's what I did for like 6 months after I graduated. And I just missed the fellas. I missed the locker room. I missed competing. And so I bounced around, took a couple of internships, and then got a graduate assistant job at the University of South Florida. And that was the first time I was excited to wake up and go to work, even though I was making twice the money as an accountant. And the rest is history. So
that's great. Well, and you went to a couple other places as well. So you started out at South Florida.
Yeah, actually, I started at Florida. Buddy Tevens got me in the door as he was the offensive coordinator for Coach Spurrier. And so he got me in the door as a recruiting assistant in the Office of Student Life. And Buddy was trying to get me on the staff as a GA. And so I met with Coach Spurrier for like 30 seconds. And he was like, well, Buddy tells me you're a good guy, but I'm a Gator and I only hire Gators. So good luck to you. And that was it. So I was like, okay, well, this isn't going to happen. But Mike Canales, Chico Canales actually got me in South Florida with Jim Levitt. And that was my first GA job.
And you actually even were, let's see, in the NFL. What was your position there in the NFL?
You know, I was actually an intern.
That's what it was.
I interned with the Denver Broncos with Mike Shanahan, and we had Carl Durrell, Gary Kubiak, Larry Coyer, Ray Rhodes. I mean, our staff was insane, and I just ate it up. I was like, "What do you need me to do?" But Coach Shanahan was very clear, like he didn't care if I was an intern or the D coordinator. There were expectations, and it was damn near intimidating. But I learned a ton in a really short amount of time. And when I got my full-time job, the assistants tried to get me to come back when the assistant DB coach left. And so Dave Gibbs, Alex Gibbs' son, who's a legend in the NFL and coaching, was like, hey, all right, I'm going to go to Coach Shanahan's office. I'll call you back. He came back. He's like, yeah, Coach Shanahan said he already has a decision made and get the hell out of his office. So, I was like, I don't think it's going to work out. So,
well, so you went to Oregon State, were there a couple other Pac-10 schools at the time that you went to, or just Oregon State?
I went from South Florida to Portland State. I was at Portland State in 01-02, Oregon State from 03 to 07. And then I went from Oregon State to the D coordinator in Nevada for 08-09. And then I was the head coach of Portland State from 10 until 14.
Well, let's talk about that. You're the head coach for somebody who didn't necessarily want to coach in the beginning and then found it to be kind of your passion, to ended up being the head coach at Portland State. What was that like? You know, once you started coaching, was that your end goal, was to be a coach, a head coach?
Yeah, I think once I got into it, I was around some really great coaches, you know, whether it was, like I said, with the Denver Broncos, with Mike Riley at Oregon State, with Tim Walsh at Portland State, Chris Alton, Hall of Fame. And so from all those places, I kind of took things that I liked and I kind of started this file back when I think I was in like my 3rd or 4th year. And I just labeled it vision, and just the things that I like, I just kind of threw it in this thing. And, you know, with the idea of, I want to run my own ship at some point. And so when the opportunity came, especially at a place I was familiar with and a place that I like living, it was kind of a no-brainer for me, even though a lot of the people that saw the trajectory of my career, told me I was making a mistake. They were just like, don't do it, just keep moving. Because they thought I could get, a big job. And I kind of thought I could just still get that big job, but just through a different way. And so it's what it is.
All right, so let's talk about that. You were let go at Portland State. What was your biggest takeaway from that?
Relief, if I'm being honest. It was a tough place, like I said, I enjoyed my transition to Washington because I was around people who were very serious about what they did, and they expected excellence of themselves always. Heck, we partied. We made sure we partied better than anybody. Like that's just how we were, and it was cool. I that's how I kind of lived my life. Let's just say Portland State was not that. There were some people who were just very comfortable being in cruise control, and a lot of coaches who come into situations like that. I remember listening to Derek Dooley talk, and he had said, his hardest thing when he became the head coach of Tennessee was getting people who had been there for 30 years to change something that they did. And he said, the constant thing he was getting was, well, we've never done it like that. And why should we change? And he was like, you realize if that way worked, I wouldn't be here. So I don't know what to tell you, but you can't keep doing it that way. And that was his biggest fight. It wasn't trying to get the kids to buy in or parents or recruiting or coaches. It was the administration. I actually found the exact same thing. It wasn't the kids. It wasn't the parents. It wasn't the recruits. It was getting people who had been there for quite some time, had no interest in doing things a different way. And it was like, well, that way didn't work. If it did, I would not be here. I would still be over there.
Right.
And so but it was that's just kind of how it was, and it was still a great experience. And
I'm sure it was a learning experience for you for sure.
No doubt, every day. Because at a place like that, you have to do everything. Like there's no, is there a person to do that? No, that person's you. It's not like you're in Nebraska, USC, where there's an army of people that can do things. So yeah, you had to figure it all out on your own. But it was cool.
Now, you were known as a really good recruiter. So what were the things that you would look for? I interview high school kids as well. And, I always want them to be prepared and really to know what the colleges look for. So what did you look for in an athlete?
Well, first, there's always just baseline things, right? I mean, depending upon the system that you run, right? So I was a big press man guy. And I was like, look, if they're smaller than me, they're going to have a problem doing press because, that's just not what we do in terms of defensive backs. As I became the head coach, it just was like, okay, I liked running a system where we had a running quarterback because what we found was if quarterbacks in a passing system weren't starting, they left. So if you could find a guy who's just an athlete who also, threw the ball, but was an athlete, and he didn't become the starter, you could probably figure out to do something else with him if he's athletic and he's willing to try. So there's bare minimums, right? Athletically, size, speed, academically, can they meet the minimum requirements? And then from there, kind of the most important thing to me was what makes you tick. Like, how important is this to you? If football is something you do because what it provides, you're not for me. If football is what you do because you love it, like you love the hard parts of it, you love the parts that suck, then you're probably my kind of guy. I loved hyper competitive guys. I recruited this kid, Brian Payton, and I fell in love with him on film, not from a play he made. He had a twin brother, Jeremy, who played at Arizona State. And I actually recruited them both. But I wanted Brian first because Jeremy dropped the pick in a high school game. And on the film, you saw Jeremy walk over to his twin brother and slap him in the face. And I was like, that's the dude. Because if you're that competitive that you're like, suck your own brother, like, I can ride with that guy. The guy who, would get beat and be like, no big deal, whatever. I got good ride. So those are kind of things that I look
Now, as a coach, was there a coach that you idolized, that you kind of looked up to, that you kind of molded your coaching style to?
for. Not really. I mean, I kind of took little pieces of every guy I knew. Like I took pieces of Ron Miles. I took pieces of Scott Plur. I took pieces of Tim Walsh, and you know, um, even guys I didn't necessarily like, but I respected something about them. You know, but more importantly, like I just think you had to be true to yourself. The one thing about young people is they smell BS from a mile away. So if you try to like be somebody you're not, that ain't gonna work. So I just had to be me. And so, I mean, I kept the standard high, tried to have fun. Um, I guess one of the things I learned from Portland State was that was not the situation for me because I started to become somebody else. Yeah, and my family even noticed. So that's why I was relieved when it was over because I could kind of go back to just being me, which was having fun and being loose. And there was a point where I started to become somebody else, and that told me I needed to get out.
And that's something that's really, it's good that you realize that as well. I mean, I know the circumstance wasn't exactly in your control, but really to understand that that did change you, and maybe not for the better. And so, good that your family noticed it, and because some things just they do change you, and you do feel like you have to be somebody that you're not, and that's not a good place to be. I mean, there's so many fake people out there right now. It's good to just be able to be who you are.
No doubt.
So now you are an analyst on the Pac-12 network. Talk to me about that. How does that really relate to coaching? What's the differences between that and being a coach, if any?
Coaching is like having a kid. Being an analyst is like babysitting. Like you still get the joy, you still have fun, but you don't own it, right? I mean, there's the good and the bad with parenting. And there's this thing at the end where you're like, that was my product. Like that's all my work. And and when they screw up, they come right back to you. And that never ends. Like guys that are in their 30s that still call me like, hey, I need some help with this, or what do you think? And that's that joy you get from coaching. Being an analyst isn't the same way. You still have fun, like babysitting, but it's not yours. Like you screw it up, it doesn't come back to haunt you. I could be wrong every damn weekend. People still tune in. And so, but I have fun. I work with the best people on the planet. It has been one of the great joys. The friendships I've made. I walked in the room and I wasn't the best player in the room by a long shot. I was the worst player and the worst coach in the room. But I was like maybe the mix of both. I mean, I'm in the room with Curtis Conway and Lincoln Kennedy and Jake Plummer and Chad Brown. I mean, guys who are just legends. Maybe I was better than Evan Moore. But he's better looking than I am. So, it's whatever. And then I'm in the room with Nick Aliotti and Rick Neuheisel and guys who just, made it to the cream of what they were doing. And so with all that knowledge base, the part that was the coolest part was just how good of people they were. I mean, we had a blast. And so I'm not sure what's going to happen this year. Being the Pac-12 network is not going to have games until the last week. But those people we saw as family. I mean, seriously, we'd be at each other's houses. We would, have dinner with each other. We'd talk life, and I'm gonna miss the hell out of them if we don't do something this fall.
So that kind of segments into my next question about COVID, and this whole pandemic. So obviously, it has affected you and the Pac-12 network as far as not having any games to cover. Talk to me a little bit about how that's been for you.
It's been a double-edged sword. I don't know what's going on Pac-12 network for me right now. I know we're gonna have games for the conference, so that's more important than anything with me. I didn't get a chance to do my youth camp this year, which that sucked because I'd see Lincoln. He would come, and some of my guys would come and help out with that. Uh, but on the other hand, I got time with my kids that I will never ever have again. When it was just us, it was the four of us in the house, and they weren't going anywhere. They couldn't see friends. And we found ways to like make it fun. We played board games together and card games and teaching my daughter how to shuffle and her beating me at card games, which kind of pissed me off. And my son and I would work out every day and we just got this time together that whenever we reach normalcy again, they're gonna be gone. Like they'll have their sports and their events and their friends and it won't be the same. And so I just tried to like soak it up. I tried to enjoy it. And for the most part, like they did too. And now we're in this like quasi mode that's kind of weird. So we're kind of pissing each other off now. But back then, we knew it was like, look, man, like this just might be it. It's just us. So we gotta like, be gracious and be loving towards each other. And it was really I'm gonna look back on it as pretty cool. They'll probably look back and say it sucked, but I thought it was pretty good.
And how old are your kids? You have two kids, right? A boy and a girl.
I got a preteen and a teenager, so that's almost like
good luck.
So my son turns 15 this year, and my daughter just turned 11. But yeah, and he's big. He's as big as I was as a senior. He's as big as a freshman. So yeah, but but it was really there were some good moments to it. So I just try to look at the bright side.
Yeah, it's pretty much all you could do during that time, especially. Things have kind of loosened up a little bit, but still, and I think that's the thing, is to really cherish those times. I have two kids that are grown and out of the house, and man, it went fast. So just to have that time to really just, cherish those moments that go by so fast. So you already kind of mentioned that they play sports. We talked a little bit before we came on about your son is playing football for Jesuit, and you are helping out as well.
Yeah. So I think you're referring to the frozen peas sitting over here, because I decided to teach a kid how to run a route, and I fell, busted my hand up like an idiot. So I got to kind of cool it on that. But so I'm helping coach. Because somebody asked me, I did an interview, and somebody asked me like, "Oh, will I go back? Do I want to go back and coach?" And I'm like, I mean, at some point, yeah, I'm sure I would. My kids are gone, but right now, I want to be there for these last couple of years, because in 3 years, my son's gone. And he's out the house and living his own life. And I missed their first steps. I missed their first words. And I don't want to miss this. And ultimately for me, it wasn't about the level that I coached at. I coached a kid who won a Super Bowl at Portland State. And so I've coached 6th grade football. I've coached 7th grade basketball. And all it's really about is helping a young person achieve something they couldn't achieve on their own, and seeing that growth. And so I don't need 60,000 people in the stadium to like feed my ego. It's just about trying to help. And like today, I had 2 kids come up to me afterwards, like, "Hey man, thanks. That really helped me out." And a third kid was like, "How can I get better? What do I need to do?" Those are the moments that you coach for, way more than anything else. So I still get that fix. I still get that competitive edge. I still get those moments to teach. And so, for now, I'm happy.
Do you see yourself as a mentor?
Yeah, you have to be if you coach. If you're not, I mean, I guess maybe in the NFL you cannot be a mentor, maybe because they're grown men, maybe, but not really, because I did it. And the thing I figured out working on for the Broncos was that like those are just big ass kids. They're just kids with checks. That's all. Like we had guys who, I mean, they clowned around. They were little kids. Like you literally had to lead them around the same way you did a college kid. It didn't change. We had Steve Berline and Shannon Sharp and Terrell Davis. I mean, you didn't have to do that with Steve. He was like older than all of us. But other than that, like that's how they were. So yeah, you have to be. You don't have a choice. They're going to mimic what you do. If you are a jerk, they'll be jerks. If you're kind and you tell them that you care about them and that and if my favorite thing is I'd say, listen, I'm going to keep my level up here and you're going to find a way to meet it. And for the 1% who don't, y'all probably going to go to jail anyway. So I'm not going to worry about you. So 99% of people will try to meet whatever standard you set. And so, yeah, that's.
So who has been the most inspirational athlete that you've met or that you've interviewed or coached?
Man, I don't know. I've met so many kids who came from circumstances that you would think don't exist in America, and through no fault of their own. And I don't want to out them, but that was inspiring to me. No matter what they ever achieved, just getting to college was like a miracle through their work. And so, I've been inspired by a lot of kids. I've been inspired by kids who, had two parents and, but they overcame something. Everybody who gets to, especially that level, like you have to overcome so much, whether it's self-doubt or the situation you were in or whatever. So, yeah, I would tell guys, they affected my life way more than I probably affected theirs.
Yeah, there's some amazing stories out there and so many things that these kids have to overcome just to survive, is pretty amazing. Some of the stories that you hear and, it's amazing that they have football or whatever sport they play to really help them get through it. It's like football, brotherhood. You have people around you that will support you when maybe you didn't have that before. So that's one thing I love the most about sports in general is that honestly, it can save a life.
No doubt.
I think that's so important really to realize that how important sports are.
We used to say, it's too bad everybody in the world wasn't forced to play football, because I'm serious. And football is a different type of sport. Like if you put LeBron James on a high school basketball team, the rest of those dudes can be hot garbage and they'll still be good. You could put, a dominant pitcher on a baseball team and they'll be really good. Football doesn't work that way. I mean, I'm sure Bo Jackson in his prime would run over some guys, but if everybody doesn't do their job, people get hurt. And no other sport works that way. I don't set a screen, whatever, we miss a shot, but nobody gets hurt. If you don't do your job in football, you get hurt. And it doesn't matter what color somebody is, it doesn't matter what background they come from, 2 parents, 1 parent, rich, poor. If we don't find a way to work together, we're gonna get smoked, like literally get hurt. And so people I've seen, that's probably been the most inspiring thing, seeing guys. I saw a guy on Instagram today that I coached, Ian Sluss. Ian's from a white kid from Redlands, California. I don't think Ian's ever struggled for anything in his life. And his best friend was a kid named Deontay Brooks, this kid from Compton. And they were best men in each other. Well, one of them's married. Deontay was the best man in Ian's wedding. And those two became, without football, they don't even know each other in America, because America purposely keeps those people apart. Football brought those two together, and they'll be in each other's lives forever. That's cool.
That's really cool. That's the amazing thing. Like you said, there's no color. It doesn't matter who you are when you're on the field, and you build those relationships off the field. So I think it just opens people's eyes really to how people are. I mean, it doesn't matter what you look like. It doesn't matter the color of your skin. None of that matters. It's your heart and really who you are as a person. That's the biggest thing that matters. And so, it's sad nowadays, but that's a whole nother show. What has been the biggest high pressure situation you've been in, and how did you handle it?
I don't know. I guess it kind of depends. Like, probably the most pressure was when I lost my job because at the time, most coaches we work so much. Our wives, if we have kids, can't really have a full-time job because we're gone. Like 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. gone. So how are you gonna hold a job when you got little ones? And so, the pressure of, okay, I got to figure this out quick to take care of my family. That was one. I don't know though. That might have been the only one. And the only reason I say that is because I always felt like if you were prepared, there's no such thing as pressure. And I felt like going into games, I was prepared, like crazy prepared. I would watch more film than anybody. I would, because I wasn't as athletic as everybody else. The only way I survived was knowing what was going to happen before it did. Coaching, the same thing. So I was fine. I wasn't prepared to get fired. So that was the only time that I was like, okay, I feel pressure now because I wasn't ready for this. But it worked out. I married up, so it was good.
So, what is a little known fact about you?
Oh no, man. I've been like an open book since I was 16. So I mean, little known fact about me. See, I can't even because I do a stupid radio show every morning. So like the guys who listen to me know, like they know I'm colorblind. They know, they've met my grandmother. My grandmother's been on my show. My parents have been on my show. My kids have been on my show. So I'm trying to think like what.
I mean, like, do you have a fear? Is there a fear that you have that maybe is a little?
Maybe. Yeah, I don't like heights at all. I've kind of started to get over it though. When I was younger, I was definitely scared of heights. I think my dad threw me up when I was a baby and dropped me. I think that like maybe like cool on everything. But I've tried to actually overcome that a little bit. But yeah, heights, no bueno. Not a fan. Other than that, I don't know. This is the best I can grow a beard. I have no idea. I couldn't.
Yeah, I was a little shocked. I mean, the picture I've been like posting of you is all clean shaven.
No, I did the COVID thing, and I kind of liked it. My wife hates it, but
it makes you look distinguished.
Oh, okay. I'll be sure to pass that along.
All right. So, what life lessons did you take away from playing the game? And I think we've kind of gone over some of those, but you personally, what did you take away?
You just get knocked down every play. You got to get up. That was the biggest one. You gotta keep fighting, and you gotta find a way. There's just like there's no like, oh well, he's bigger than me. So what? You gotta find a way. And so that's probably the thing I learned, just getting knocked down and you have to continually get up.
Which is what you have to do in life anyway. I mean, that's a pretty good analogy for life.
Yeah.
You get knocked down over and over. You have no choice but to get up and fight. So that's good. So do you have any advice for maybe high school kids that are watching, or college kids? Do you have any advice for them?
I don't know. I tell my son, probably more than I should. I would just say, wake up every day with a purpose. That's the biggest thing to me. I didn't worry about who's recruiting me. Don't worry about who's recruiting you. Don't worry about how come that guy over there is getting this. Just wake up with a purpose every day and try to accomplish whatever that purpose is. And if you don't know what your purpose is, then figure it out. Like actually sit down and think about it. Like what is the purpose for what you're trying to do every day? Because that helps you get through the crap. Because every day's got crap. Kids nowadays got a lot of crap. They're spending six hours on a screen, for class, and then they got 2 more hours of homework on another screen. And, it's hard to probably figure out like what is all this for. And so if you can figure out what your purpose is, like, I think that'll help get through some of those hard times and keeps you focused. It keeps you on the right path. Um, and in terms of kids who want to be recruited and all that kind of stuff, I always used to tell guys, look, I didn't have a lot of offers. I had one coming out of high school, even though I was the player of the year, and I had maybe 2, 3 coming out of Pacific where I had like film killing teams that were like the best team in the country. I balled out against, and I still didn't get a lot of attention. The biggest thing is it doesn't matter if you got one offer or you got 100, because you can only take one. And ultimately, all that matters, even if you don't have an offer, is do you have that? If there's one person who says, I believe in you, I want you to join my team, do that. Because having somebody that believes in you is more important than having 99 suckers out there who are just throwing around paper.
Right.
And so, I guess those would probably be my 2 bits of advice. But the most important is have a purpose every day.
That's very good advice. So, Nigel, thank you so much again for being on my show. I appreciate it so much. I look forward to hopefully seeing you on Pac-12 Network. And your radios, what is your radio show called?
Rip City Mornings with Dan and Nigel. So we're on Rip City Radio, 6:20 a.m. in Portland. If you're not in Portland, I know you're down in Eugene. You can get us on the iHeart radio app. So we're on iHeart. My mom listens to us every morning in Georgia. Dan's family listens in Florida. Sometimes we feel like they're the only people listening. No, I'm kidding. We have a really cool following of people, and we obviously talk sports, but we talk about what's going on in the world, and try to have fun and put smiles on people's faces as they head to work or work from home or whatever they're doing right now. So we have a lot of fun.
And what time did you say that it was on?
6 in the morning till 9 in the morning.
All right, so 6 to 9.
Yep.
Make sure to tune in.
Yep.
And like he said, if you're not up in Portland, get the iHeartRadio app and make sure to tune in. I've heard some of them, and they're pretty good. So don't miss that. So again, Nigel, thank you so much. I'm so appreciative, and it was great to have you on the show.
My pleasure. Thank you, Gina.
Absolutely. Again, this is Gina Moore with More Than Sports. Thanks for watching.